Today on Capoeira Angola. Now, it could be a little, I could do some moves here because I'm going to do it. Some Capoeira Angola movements. It's just like gymnastics. Well, so here we go. That was the Super Capoeira Angola. Just kicking at the age of 38. So maybe I'm going to lose the power here, the battery, but we have to read the genocide dossier. What's going on? What's going on in the Middle East? Palestinians are facing worse problems than running out of battery. Everybody knew that. Everybody saw that coming. Of course, Mexico will jump out of NAFTA and America and so on. But here we go, let's read the genocide dossier. It says live updates from situation in Palestine. UN warns Gaza food stocks will last only 2 weeks amid Israeli blockade. Israel and the US reject Egypt-led proposal for the reconstruction of Gaza, which differs from Trump's takeover plan. This is by Uroba Jamal Alisperry. March 5, 2025. And the first topic says, the World Food Program says it only has enough food supplies in Gaza to keep public kitchens and bakeries open for less than 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks there will be no more bread.
Atención. Para abrir la puerta del tren, presione el botón cuando se ilumine.
Arab leaders unanimously agree on a 5-year, $23 billion plan to rebuild Gaza without displacing Palestinians to counter U.S. President Donald Trump's proposal to take over the coastal enclave. So Arab leaders are hitting back Donald Trump. So I guess it's the first time I read anything from Arab leaders. These people have a lot of petrodollars. But here we go. So I wonder how beautiful was Gaza, if it was beautiful at all to rebuild it. Who knows? Israel, which is maintaining a blockade on all food, medicine, and aid into Gaza, slams the proposal. While the White House says Trump stands by his vision for the Strip, the UN Food Agency says it has 2 weeks' worth of supplies in Gaza. And third, says Hamas says it appreciates the Egypt-led proposal and welcomes calls to hold legislative and presidential elections as soon as possible. elections in Gaza, I guess. The left says Hamas will win all the way, forever. Hamas says, yeah, Gaza's health ministry says has confirmed 48,440 Palestinian deaths in Israel's war on Gaza, while 111,845 people have been wounded. The government media office updated its death toll to at least 61,709, saying thousands of Palestinians missing under the rubble are presumed dead. At least 1,139 people were killed in Israel during the October 7, 2023 Hamas-led attacks, and more than 200 were taken captive. So that was the summary for today, and this right now we have the news, the proper news from today, 3 minutes ago. Israel demolished record number of Palestinian structures in 2024. Israeli rights group. An Israeli rights group, Ir Amin, says Israel demolished a record number of Palestinian homes in occupied East Jerusalem last year. The organization, which tracks settlement activity and demolitions in the city, said that 181 homes and dozens of other structures were destroyed last year. It's not too much if you think about it. Maybe earthquakes destroyed more. Who knows? 181. Israel also appears to have dropped a long-standing policy against demolishing homes during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, which began last weekend. The group stated,
Por tu seguridad y la de todos los pasajeros, no te sientes en el suelo.
It said that the residential building and 3 apartments have been destroyed over the past week. According to rights groups, discriminatory policies make it nearly impossible for Palestinians to expand or develop their neighborhoods in East Jerusalem, forcing many to build without permits. Often the reason Israeli forces tout for demolishing Palestinian structures. And 18 minutes ago, says Security Council to be briefed by Gaza's Humanitarian and Reconstruction Coordination by Gabriel Elizondo. There's a closed door meeting at the United Nations today where the Security Council members expect to be briefed by Sigrid Kaag, UN Senior Humanitarian and Reconstruction Coordinator for Gaza. She also, since January, has been an interim UN coordinator for the Middle East peace process. So she is holding 2 very important UN jobs simultaneously. She is expected to brief the Council on the implementation of Security Council Resolution 2720, which was adopted in December 2023, and which, among other things, called for all border crossings to remain open so aid could get into Gaza. But also this was the Security Council resolution that basically gave her job, call on the Secretary General to appoint a senior humanitarian and reconstruction coordinator for Gaza, and that is her mandate, and it runs out at the end of this month. We expect that she will brief the Council on some of the positive trends that have happened in the last 6 weeks in terms of getting aid into Gaza. The UN says about 90% of Palestinians in Gaza have received some sort of food aid since phase 1 of the ceasefire deal went into effect, Within the last 36 hours, the UN said about 29 patients who were critically injured have been evacuated out of Gaza. These are just some of the good news that CAAG will highlight, but also the situation will the border crossing remain closed. It is seeking Karem Abu Salem, Karem Shalom, close by the Israelis. I think CAAG is going to brief the Security Council on that as well, and how that will affect humanitarian aid the longer that Israel keeps those closed. 40 minutes ago. It says, UK, France and Germany urge Israel to restore aid to Gaza. Israel must meet international obligations to provide humanitarian aid to Gaza, the foreign minister of the UK, France and Germany have said in a joint statement. Quote, "We call on the government of Israel to abide by its international obligations to ensure full, rapid, safe and unhindered provision of humanitarian assistance to the population in Gaza," the statement read. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said on Sunday that, quote, "The entry of all goods and supplies to the Gaza Strip will be halted," end quote, accusing Hamas of refusing to accept a framework for the continuation of talks proposed by U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. We always face this bad driving here in the metro, in the subway. Steve Witkoff, quote, "Humanitarian aid should never be contingent on a ceasefire or used as a political tool," end quote. It added, calling on all parties to uphold the ceasefire. And there's a photograph. The blockade means most basic food is either unavailable or unaffordable, pushing people into survival mode. That looks just like any global south country, just like Chile. 1 hour ago, Columbia University students protest against former Israeli Prime Minister's visit. It says Columbia University students in New York organized a protest yesterday against the university hosting former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. The protesters raised Palestinian flags and chanted slogans opposing the administration's reception of the Israeli politician. They also chanted slogans calling for the country's boycott and for the freedom of Palestinian people from Israeli occupation. And that's it by now. The very last one says, people in Gaza preparing for resumption of starvation. What? And just it's too long, but there you have. Starvation in Gaza, starvation everywhere in the global south.